Hi guys, so this video I've got some date footage which I'm going to break down for you. This video is going to be a bit more beginner focused, so it's going to focus more on the first say 10-15 minutes of the date, where there's a bit more emphasis on comfort building rather than the escalation aspects of the date, which are obviously very important. But yeah, I guess this is more sort of beginner focused, especially for guys who, you know, maybe you haven't been on very many dates, or maybe you've never been on a date. Or perhaps it's been a really long time since you've been on a date, and the prospect of going on a date can feel like really intimidating, you know, being one-on-one with a girl for a long period of time, like an hour or 45 minutes or something like that. Obviously, understandably, that can feel quite intimidating, but the reality of it really is that it's really not that bad, because, you know, the girl wants to be there with you, and she is going to make it easy for you to get the conversation flowing and to have that back and forth conversation, because obviously if she's meeting up with you, that means she likes you, so that's the main thing to kind of bear in mind. So yeah, let's watch the clip.
On what?
Like the tourist attractions, like Eiffel Tower. Well, that was yesterday, but today we went to Notre Dame.
Oh.
And other places, you know.
Which is more attractive, the Eiffel Tower or Notre Dame?
For me,
yeah.
I like this area. For me personally, I like this
okay.
area. Not just Eiffel Tower, but like the whole landscape. Like for me, it's really nice. But what about you?
I prefer Notre Dame.
Okay.
So this was a Ukrainian girl that I met in Paris, and we were just kind of walking casually along to our date location, which was just like a bar / cafe, which there's loads of them in Paris. So initially, like, we're just talking about very basic stuff, just like what we've been up to recently. We both have that commonality of the fact that we're both fairly new in the city, and we're both sort of like tourists. So we're just talking about what we've been up to, so stuff like visiting the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, etc. Just keeping it very, very casual, not overthinking it, just very basic small talk, just to build that initial level of comfort where she is going to feel comfortable expressing herself to me and vice versa. And yeah, just building that very basic level of comfort. You'll notice the girl, you know, she's speaking almost as much as I am, because, you know, she's feeling comfortable in my presence. Just bear in mind, not every girl's going to be like that. Some are going to be a bit more shy because maybe they're just, you know, coming from a different background, whatever it is. And so, you know, you might have to work a little bit more in terms of opening her up and building that initial comfort. But I guess with this girl, she was somewhat similar to me in that I guess she's a bit of like an introvert, but like a confident sort of introvert, where she's comfortable expressing herself and able to kind of speak fairly articulately.
Yeah.
And my cousin studies near London.
Oh really?
Yeah, in Reading.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that place.
I haven't visited her.
You don't want to go there?
I want to go there,
No,
but...
because that town is where people get stabbed. You don't want to go there.
Yeah, really.
So we continue just to speak a bit more about ourselves, and eventually the conversation lands upon the fact that she's going to be visiting the UK soon, and she's going to be going to Reading. I find that a bit interesting, so I kind of call it out, but in a kind of a jokey sort of way. So I say, oh no, don't go to Reading, you might get stabbed there, as a kind of like a little tease, a little bit of a challenge at that point. Nothing spectacular, but just to kind of make the conversation slightly more interesting and engaging, so that you're not fully just talking about sort of bland topics, but making those bland topics a little bit more exciting.
So I was on the east side earlier, and yeah, there's like loads of places there. Here's like similar, you know, bars stuff.
Yeah.
But,
and they're different.
yeah. So
Also crowded.
no, less crowded here. Here's way more crowded.
So you'll probably notice that we're sitting in fairly close proximity here, and it's really important that in your dates that you pick a place where there is side-by-side seating, and preferably where you can sit close to each other as well. The reason for that is twofold. The first is just so that you can escalate more easily physically, so where you can do the physical escalation stuff, so where you're touching each other, eventually going in for the kiss. So if you think about it, if you're sat opposite each other, it's very, very difficult to do that without it being awkward. Especially going in for the kiss, just almost impossible to do that when you're sitting side by side. And the second reason is because when you're sitting next to each other, you're close to each other, there's an inherent sense as if you kind of know each other, rather than just being two strangers who are meeting just for the first time or the second time. and there's an inherent sense of comfort already there, where she's already comfortable in your presence, where she's in close proximity to you, and you're displaying confidence as well because you're comfortable in her presence where you're close to each other as well. So there's that psychological element to it as well. I've had clients in the past who have said stuff like, oh yeah, I've tried to sit side by side with her, but she kind of, or like it's a scenario where there's like a sofa or a bench on one side and then there's like a stool or a chair on the other side of the table, and then the girl's just insisting on sitting on the opposite side. The way it's actually quite easy to resolve that, really. You just kind of lead the girl, you let her sit down first and then you sit down next to her, and if that's not possible, then you can literally just find an excuse to get up, whether it's going for the toilet or getting a drink or something, and then come back and then sit next to her. So there's really no excuse, really. It's you just kind of got to lead the situation. First of all, picking an ideal place where there is decent side-by-side seating, and second of all, leading her, whether it's getting her to sit down first and then sitting down next to her. Just to set the scene a bit with this one, because this was in Paris, and it was actually quite a last-minute date, so I think we actually organised it on the same day. So she agreed to the date on the same day, and we didn't really have much time, or I didn't have much time to kind of find out a good location in the city. I think if I remember correctly with this one, I actually asked her to come to like a bar which was actually fairly near the hotel that I was staying in, but she was unfortunately on the other side of Paris, and she kind of wanted to meet a little bit more in the middle, so we eventually settled for a central area in Paris, which I didn't really know anything about in terms of good locations. So it was a bit of improvisation. The thing with Paris is that there's a lot of like cafes/bars where there's lots of side-by-side seating with like close proximity. So yeah, it's just a case of just looking on Google Maps and then just finding a decent location, really.
I want to visit Ukraine though, it seems
You
cool.
haven't been there?
No.
It's very beautiful. It's more beautiful than you can imagine because it's not very, doesn't get more PR like a country. Still, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And for foreigners, it's very cheap.
Yeah, I heard about that, yeah. So this to you is like super expensive, is it?
Yeah, Paris.
Yeah. For me, this is like the same as London.
Yeah,
so,
really.
Yeah.
Ukraine is less expensive. And food is very tasty in Ukraine.
Oh really?
Yeah, and lots of beautiful girls.
Oh, okay.
And beer. You have nice
yeah.
beer. You should come.
I then mentioned that I want to go and visit Ukraine, and she then kind of reciprocates that by bringing up new conversation threads. So talking about like the girls, the beer, the fact that I should come and visit. So the fact is, the girl's there, she's present, she's continuing the conversation seamlessly, and that's kind of what you should really expect. If a girl's coming out on a date with you, she already likes you, right? So she's going to make it easy for you in terms of continuing a conversation. So bear that in mind. So don't worry too much about thinking, oh, what do I say next, or oh, what happens if I run out of things to say. There's always things to talk about, especially if she's foreign and she's from another place, because that just presents infinite possibilities about stuff you can talk about. So difference between my upbringing and her upbringing, just stuff like that. And even if like a girl's from the same place as you are, so say you're English and the girl's also English, chances are she's from a different part of the UK, or maybe from a different part of London, and that in itself presents plenty of topics to talk about. And what you'll find is that you're talking about one particular topic, it could be geographical, it could be something else, and that will then lead down to another path, which is another related topic. So eventually, you'll reach like an hour of conversation without even realizing. So don't worry too much about thinking about the next thing to say. As long as you're present and you're actively listening to what she's saying, there'll be plenty of stuff to speak about, and vice versa. She should be reciprocating to the stuff that you're saying as well.
Okay. Merci.
So is it a problem for you? You don't speak French?
I used to,
yeah.
but I forgot it all. It's like you with your English, it's like 10 times worse. So I used to speak French, but,
Yeah, but when you come here,
everything.
you try to speak French or you
speak English.
Eventually, one of the waiters comes along and pours the drinks and that kind of thing, and I'm a little bit distracted by that. I'm just kind of thinking about something else at this point, and there's just a bit of an awkward silence. You know, that's one of the things that I find quite a few of the clients that I've worked with are really afraid of. It's like, what happens if there's a dull moment, or what happens if there's an awkward silence? You know, don't worry about it, it's fine. Like, if there's ever an issue, the girl's gonna fill in the blank. You don't have to worry about that too much, because like, if you're uncomfortable with having an awkward silence, then it's gonna come across and the girl's gonna sense it, and it's just not gonna it's just going to go against the whole kind of vibe that you should be having of just being comfortable in the presence of the girl. And if you're comfortable in her presence, then you should be comfortable with having awkward silences as well, because it's just a normal part of human interaction. You know, if you get distracted slightly and there's a bit of a lull in the conversation, don't worry about it. It's normal and it's natural, and it's, again, it's about, like I said before, it's about just being present in the moment. And just being okay with that. If you're okay with that, she'll mirror your vibe and she'll be okay with it as well.
I always like to add lemon to my Coca-Cola.
But yeah,
Drinking healthy.
it's like you get a bit of fruit with it as well.
You don't add the tonic to it?
Yeah.
Yeah? How do you do it? It's like drinking tequila first time. You don't want
You might find it a bit strong if you're not used to it, but
Yeah.
it's not like that much.
I will just add tonic if
It's like less alcohol than beer, I think.
Oh, it's okay.
Yes, it's alright.
It's nice.
But yeah. So yeah, like, what was I talking about? Ukraine? Yeah. It's yeah, because obviously, like, there's all these like stereotypes, but like that, you know, it's never going to be exactly like that. Every person's an individual.
Absolutely.
Like you, if I met you for the first time but I didn't know you were Ukrainian and I couldn't tell your accent, I wouldn't tell you were Ukrainian. I would maybe think German, I don't know.
Okay.
Like maybe something like that, yeah. It's all, you know, stereotypes aren't really true, are they? You know?
Ukraine, everybody in Ukraine look different. There are white hair, dark hair, and
Do you get like hipsters?
not as many.
Not many?
Not many, but we do. Okay. Maybe I don't see them as often.
Yeah.
I just don't pay attention.
You get like...
Because it's more young people.
You're young, what the hell? You're young.
Even younger, okay.
Wait, how old are you actually? Should I guess?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I think maybe 43.
Absolutely.
How I did?
You couldn't be more precise.
Oh, okay. I like older women anyway, so it's okay.
43 and 3 months.
3 months?
Yes.
Oh. Are you actually? No, what's your real age?
28.
28, okay.
So I then go on to talk about how I didn't initially think that she would be Ukrainian. So the good thing about this is that it gets the topic of conversation focused more on her, and it kind of engages her on somewhat of an emotional level. But yeah, the thing is, it kind of just dives a little bit deeper rather than just finding out the fact that she is just from Ukraine and just leaving it at that. It's about kind of exploring that topic further, really, and just sort of extrapolating it a bit, but at the same time there's sort of like an emotional attachment to it because it's related to her, and she's going to have sort of preconceived notions about what a Ukrainian might look like and how that relates to her as well. So it just you know, develops a spontaneous conversation thread that's just fun and it's exciting, and the key thing is that it's engaging because it's relating directly to her, and you know, that in itself is interesting because a lot of people, you know, they are interested and focused on themselves and how they're perceived. So this then continues and we start talking about her age, and then I sort of tried and guess her age, and the cool thing about this is that it's a really good opportunity to make a tease about it. So I always go for the classic over guessing her age, so I say something like 47, and like 99% of the time, the girl's not going to get offended because she knows you're joking, and it's just a playful way to spark up a bit of banter with the girl, and just spice up the conversation as well. So like, you know, with a lot of beginner guys, they do find themselves playing it a bit too safe, not taking risks in conversation and not verbally escalating, and the problem with that is that you either, well, two things really, is that you either get friend zoned, or at the end of the date you try and get another date with the girl and then she's just like, no, I don't really want to see you again, I didn't really feel there's much chemistry, but really what that means is that that's basically like a girl's way of saying that she didn't really feel that sort of connection with you emotionally, or just like a lack of attraction, because remember, for girls attraction isn't just physical, it's also verbal, mental, psychological as well, so it's multifaceted.
Do I look it?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. You're eyeing me up and down, like,
Yeah.
The body is that of a real older, mature man.
You don't have a big tummy yet.
Yeah,
so-
yeah. And give me a few years and I'll be like, I won't be able to fit in this gap here.
But do you keep fit?
No.
No, you just like it.
I just eat normally and relatively active, walk around, run around. I play a bit of sport.
I think your job requires you walking around. No?
No. Sit on a computer all day.
How do you do that?
It eventually leads to further teasing. I accuse her of checking me out. That's always a good one as well, because it creates that sexual dynamic. There's a man to woman polarity inherent within that, and again, you know, that's what you're there for. She knows that it's a date. You need to clarify that, and you need to just make it clear that you're attracted to her, but in a subtle, calibrated way, and that's just one way of doing it. Throwing an accusation at her, accusing her of checking me out, because normally it's the other way around where the guy checks the girl out. So there's a little bit of a role reversal there as well.
In Ukraine, girls and boys, people get married a bit earlier than in Europe.
Really? Oh my
19,
god.
rarely.
Okay, rarely.
But sometimes it happens, yes, and it's okay. Now we try to get married a little bit later. Still, there are some people from Soviet Union, like grandmothers, grandfathers, not married yet. What are you going to do in your life?
I hate that conversation. It's
Yeah,
so
me
annoying.
too.
It's like, shut up. I don't want to talk about
I
that.
have my whole life now.
Yeah. No, but for me, there's not much pressure, because for a guy in London or in England, no one cares. But if it's a girl, it's
for
different.
girls,
For a
yeah.
girl, it's like, why? Where is your wife? Where is your husband? You know, it's like, it's such
You're
a
so concerned about it. Go and find me one. A good one.
yeah.
It's so rubbish.
Yeah. But because you know, like there's all this like online dating that everyone uses. Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, me too.
You know, that's why I approached you because I saw you and I was like, you know, I have to, you know, just do it. because-
Randomly.
Yeah, randomly. But, you know, I'm quite a spontaneous person. You know, so you know it.
What's your astrological sign? Spontaneous.
I was born on 22nd of June. I think that's Cancer or something.
It's between Cancer and two guys.
Oh, so I'm like in the middle.
No,
I don't
I
have
think you're a Cancer.
Yeah. Does it mean something? What does it mean?
Well, if you're spontaneous, maybe your other signs are not that spontaneous. For example, fish. Fish?
Aquarius.
No, not Aquarius. Aquarius.
Just a fish in general.
After Aquarius.
I don't know.
You don't know,
I'm not a
okay.
girl. I don't know these things.
Okay. Yeah, there are some boys that are very careful about the astrological signs.
Oh really?
Yes.
They're probably gay though, right?
Yeah.
They're probably gay.
Maybe,
It's
but
like, for example, you're into like fashion, right? Have you ever met a guy in fashion who wasn't gay?
you won't believe me. I had a teacher of makeup. He was a man,
Yeah.
but he had family. He had wife and 2 children.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And he wasn't wearing makeup himself. He was absolutely normal.
Yeah.
Still, it's weird.
Yeah.
Why would a guy want to do makeup?
Yeah, that is strange, you know.
Absolutely.
Like that,
Yeah, very.
because in England, never happens, never ever. They're all gay. Every single guy in any fashion-related, establishment establishment or like venue is gay. It's 100% gay.
The conversation then shifts to speaking about stuff to do with like marriage and dating and guys in Ukraine and that sort of thing. And so there's, I guess, a bit more information getting revealed sort of on a cultural level about, you know, where she's from and that sort of thing, which is always good. But it's also contextualizing or framing the fact that, you know, we're at the early stages of dating ourselves, so it sort of paints the picture to some extent as well. Whenever you sort of mention things to do with like marriage, dating, coming up to you on the streets, anything to do with that, it just kind of paints a picture of what's actually happening here and now, and it just contextualizes the whole thing. So that's always kind of good, and it's good because there's always things to talk about when it relates to you know, things like marriage and dating. It's just an engaging topic that, you know, girls like to speak about.
You know, I was dating this Czech girl like a couple years ago, and Czech Republic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of near your country, right? Yeah. She said that she, like, guys wear makeup and stuff, or like perfume and stuff. It's like, what do you think about that? Like, if a guy was wearing like perfume and like makeup and stuff, would you be like, what the hell?
Perfume or cologne?
Perfume.
I don't like when guys smell even more pleasant than I do.
That's I can understand.
But makeup, no.
Yeah, because she was saying, like, she said to me, like, Ed, why you don't have like makeup and like look after you? It's like, because I'm a guy.
Yeah.
It's like maybe guys are more like feminine over there. I don't know. It's a bit strange.
So I make a mention of an old ex-girlfriend who's Czech and speaking about perfume and stuff like that. Normally, you know, you might have heard that, you know, you shouldn't speak about ex-girlfriends and stuff when it comes to dating, but the thing is, it's very nuanced, because if you can mention exes and make a light of it or make a joke out of it, as I did, then it can actually work quite a lot in your favor. I think like the traditional sort of dating advice, if you like, of never mention your ex isn't really that pertinent, unless it's a case of just either dwelling on something that was perhaps lacking in that relationship, or just bringing up something that doesn't necessarily bring up positive emotions. So obviously stay away from that if necessary, but when it comes to jokes and emotional spikes, then I think that actually talking about exes can be quite a powerful thing to do, as I did in this case. So speaking about the fact that it was funny that she wanted me to wear perfume and stuff like that, and how that relates to her own views. So it can actually work in your favor sometimes.
Look on your arm, you're like really pale. Like, you look like you.
Yes, I don't do
like
sunbathing now.
No, you look like.
You're almost
Look at
as
me.
pale
It's like
as,
we're like.
as
I don't know
pale as
who's paler. It's
Yeah.
like exactly the same. It's
But
like.
Don't you think that a pale person is like aristocratic blood or something?
Aristocratic?
Yes. We say
Maybe
that.
hundreds of years ago.
So what? That makes it even
we
more
moved past
aristocratic.
that.
I then proceed to do a very kind of subtle bit of physical escalation just by literally just putting my arm next to her arm and comparing tans, or lack of tans in this case. So yeah, that's just like a very, very basic way of starting off doing a bit of physical escalation, because it's important that you do a bit of touching before going into the kiss, just to get her comfortable, because it you know, if it's almost like a litmus test in a way, because if she's uncomfortable with actually touching you normally, then it's very unlikely that she's going to be comfortable with actually, you know, kissing you, which is what you need to do on a date for it to go further. So yeah, she's obviously very comfortable with that, so that's great. So yeah, that's something I recommend guys doing, especially in the summer. If you're wearing short sleeves and she's wearing short sleeves or showing a bit of skin, then you can just put your arm next to her arm and just compare your tan or your lack of a tan. It doesn't matter if you're tanned or not tanned, it's just an excuse really, just to get up close and personal and get your arm next to her arm, get touching, get her comfortable with your touch basically.
You don't club anymore? Me neither. I don't really, because once you get to a certain age, you just stop going. It's like, it's more like early 20s sort of thing, isn't it?
Or early 40s.
40, oh, in your case. Is that your like life goal?
Yeah. Early 20s girls.
You may have also noticed that I was also touching her slightly, like when I make a joke, for example, just touching lightly on the shoulder or on the knee, something like that. Just something very, very subtle, just so that she's again getting comfortable with the touch. So yeah, hopefully that was useful. The key thing, you know, as a beginner guy, is not to be intimidated by it, because when you're on a date with a girl, it's far more relaxed than when you're initially approaching a girl for the first time, say on the street, because, you know, on the street you kind of need to make that big impact, you need to have that high energy, and, you know, there needs to be that trying to form a conversation essentially out of nothing, which can be quite challenging for beginner guys. Whereas on the date, you know, the girl's just going to make it easy for you, because the fact is that she wants to be there with you and she wants to engage with you. So don't worry too much about, you know, trying to have that flow of conversation and continue a conversation. You know, that sort of stuff will be made easy for you the vast majority of the time. So what you then want to be doing is focusing more on like the escalation aspect. So I know like James likes to do the question game. Personally, I tend not to sort of frame it necessarily as a question game. I sort of just ask the questions throughout the conversation that they're gradually escalating the verbal stuff. So talking about stuff like, you know, I'll ask questions like, why are you single, or what did you think when I approached you initially, or what do you look for in a guy? Throwing those sorts of questions in just to kind of build up that sexual tension, and make jokes throughout whatever her response is. Make a joke out of that, just to kind of engage with her emotionally, whilst sprinkling in physical escalation at the same time. So, you know, touching her on the knee or on the shoulder, something like that when I make a joke, and you know, comparing tans as I showed in this video, but also other stuff as well. Like, for example, I might take her hand, put it next to my hand, compare hand sizes. That's always a good one as well. And then eventually going in for the kiss. Normally I like to do that when there's been a bit of a high moment, like an emotional high or a spike in the conversation, but ultimately there's no perfect time to go in for the kiss, and it's important that you do it, that A, you do it, and B, you actually have the balls to do it, because the longer you leave it without doing it, the more difficult it becomes and the more awkward it feels as well. So you just have to go for it, really. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers for watching. If you'd be interested in one-to-one coaching with me, where we'll go out in public and work on your approaching girls, or more generally with your social confidence, please visit my website ed-game.com.